So when it comes to the 8 holidays that are usually celebrated by most pagans, now mind you, again, this perspective is my own perspective. It's what I've done for study over the years. I can't say that every pagan believes in this because pagan again is such a huge broad term and such a huge umbrella. But for me personally, they all come down to trying to find food because you're talking about an agrarian people. You're talking about people who were growing crops. They were farmers, all of them. They were farmers. And let's be honest, you go back 2,000 years, everybody's a farmer, except for maybe two blacksmiths and some lord, right? But everybody's a farmer. So you're looking at the wheel in that regard. So Yule, when it says the Yule is celebrated as the longest night and the shortest day of the year, is basically to bring back light into the world. And the reason why light's important is because, let's be honest, sunlight is what makes plants grow. Sunlight is what makes animals come out, and we're hungry. We've had 3 months of winter slash fall where we've been scraping our larders and hoping and praying that we can get through winter. So it is a celebration of trying to bring light back in the world so we can get some food because we're hungry. Right? And then you move on into Imbolc. Imbolc is more of a fire. It's almost like because the days are getting longer, we're now celebrating the fact that the days are starting to get longer. It's where you would take the time to seed your plants inside to start their germination process so that you can then transfer them out into your garden come spring, come Ostera. And then you move on into Ostera. Ostera is a spring celebration. The reason why the symbols for Ostera are usually eggs and are usually bunny rabbits is because in and around March 21st is when you start seeing birds flying around and birds are laying eggs. And again, we've been hungry for 6+ months. We want food. And I don't know about you, but we still to this day eat eggs in the morning and what have you. So you got eggs for Ostera, and then you've got bunny rabbits because, let's be honest, bunny rabbits mate like bunny rabbits. And so therefore they're viewed as fertility symbols. That's why they're there. Then you move on into the next holiday, which I believe is Beltane, if my memory serves me correct, and that's going to be May Day. Now we've got some food in our bellies, and it's time to engage in certain activities, which is why we dance around the maypole, because the maypole is a symbol of masculinity. To be blunt, it is a phallic symbol. So it's a time for fertility, for mating the animals, and also mating the people, to put it bluntly. All right, and then you move on to midsummer. Midsummer is sometimes also called Litha. This is the hottest day of the year. This is when the sun, and for a lot of Wiccans, this is when the god, the male aspect of deity, is at its peak, is at its strongest. Probably because the sun's out the longest. It's the longest day of the year. It's also one of the hotter days of the year. So it's a celebration of that male, masculine energy. It's also a celebration of the sun burning away any impurities in our lives. All right? But again, when it revolves around food, our food is growing, life is good, we've got some stuff. Yay. All right? And then you move on into to Lanasa. Lanasa is also sometimes called Lammas. Lanasa is the first fall harvest. So that's when your zucchini and stuff's coming in pretty good, and your squash is coming in. You're more fruit gourd like basis, except for pumpkins, obviously, and turnips. But you've got that first harvest coming in, so you're bringing in the harvest, and you're celebrating the fact that yay, our harvest was good, the plants grew well, we probably will survive winter. Life is great. Let's have a party and get verschnicket. All right, to quote a movie. And then you move into Maban. Maban is a similar thing. It's the second harvest. This is when you're starting to harvest more of your. Oh, excuse me. With Lanasa, the other thing you're harvesting is grain, particularly in Europe. You're harvesting grain. That's why a lot of times they'll bake bread for it. Maban, you're harvesting again the second harvest. You're harvesting the rest of the stuff that's out there, or most of the rest of the stuff that's out there. So it is a time of Thanksgiving. It's basically the pagan equivalent to Thanksgiving Day. We get together and we have again a celebration. We have a feast and we talk and make merriment. And then you move into Samhain. Samhain, what most people would think of as being Halloween. The reason why Samhain is oftentimes looked at as a time of death is, once again, you have to understand that all of these holidays come from areas in Europe. So by the time you get to October 31st, it's pretty darn cold. It's not snow on the ground maybe yet, but it's pretty darn cold. The sunlight has been waning for quite some time now. That's why a lot of times Wiccans will particularly say that at this point in time, at least in their mythology, their male aspect of deity dies. Sorry. Apparently. Their male aspect of deity dies, and their female aspect of deity tends to mourn his death, but by the same token, because everything in a lot of pagan paths is cyclical, the male deity may die, but also the male deity is currently growing in her womb anyway. So you can think of it almost like he dies, he makes himself be born again, and then he dies again. That's their mythology. Now, mind you, every path is different. For Norse, this is not the case. For Grecians, this is not. For hedonists, this is not the case. But that's why they would celebrate, because the vines are bare. The vines are, there's nothing on them. They look like skeletons sticking out of the ground. That's why it's always good. You got the skeleton theme, you got the theme of death. That's why it's thought of as a time period where the veil between the living and the dead is the greatest, because everything around these people is dying. Of course, that's got to be the time when, again, agrarian people or superstitious people, there's got to be a time when the veil between life and death is the thinnest. That's when a time when you would specifically say, okay, well, if the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest, I probably should cook grandma a meal because she might be coming by tonight. Or I want to make sure that nobody's going to mess with my kids, so I'm going to put a face carved out of a turnip on my doorstep to make sure that spirits stay away because I don't want them messing with my kids, right? It seems strange, perhaps, but like all religious beliefs and like all spiritual beliefs, they're all based off of some natural phenomenon that happens, at least in my opinion. But that's basically the wheel of the 8 holidays that most pagans celebrate. Yule was first, sorry. Sure. Sorry, folks. Another person came in while we were having a discussion, and we'd already covered Yule. That started with Yule, actually. So yeah, that's the 8 holidays.